friend. Welcome to the treehouse. Want to come inside? Oh, wait, just one last thing. All right, let's go inside. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Frame by Frame, September 25th. This is the shallow depth of field frame by frame. Happy to be here. How's everyone doing? Let me know in the chat if I'm coming in loud and clear. I have mostly recovered from last week's illness, so I'm feeling pretty good. Although I think I might be getting allergic to one of our new cats, waking up every morning, sniffly, red eyes. But happy to be back here and gonna dive into it really soon. But welcome anyone who's new. If you're new, I would love to hear in the comments if you're watching live, if this is your first time here at Frame by Frame. And if you're watching the replay, happy to have you here as well, watching, and would love to have you live. I'm going live every Thursday, and you can find all of that information over on the Photography and Friends community, where next week I'll be going over the Symmetry Photo Challenge. So that's what's up here on the page. We've got weekly challenges coming out every week. You can see here. You can even go back in time and participate if you're interested in. And here at Frame by Frame, I go over the previous week's photos. I hope I got all of them in, but I do make this presentation. You got to get your photos. I'm just going to kind of make a rule now. You got to get your photos in by Sunday because I'm going to make the presentation by Monday. Whoop, nope, that's not the right button. Hopefully that will work for most people. But hi, Maria, welcome. New Miss Windy City, welcome. Anmar, welcome. I'm going to get into it. Just a couple quick other updates. Still working on this course that I'm very excited about. Temporarily named Powerful Photography, but I'm actually trying to think of something a little bit better than that. The premise is to help you guys take the best photos, but more impactful photos. How can we use photography as a tool for good in our lives and other people's lives? So if you have any ideas, let me know down below. And also something I want you to all be thinking about before we get into the shallow depth of field, and you can post comments here or on any page in the community, is just think about if there's anything that I can be doing or we can do to make the community better. I feel like it's been at like a little bit of a stable place for half a year or so, but I know there's probably things that we can do to make it better. I think something that might help make things clear is, where should you be posting your photos? I see a lot of photos being posted to the photo critiques, and I love when people are asking for what they need help with. And so if you're just posting photos for fun, the best place to post that is in the gallery. And if you need specific help for a photo, or if you're really looking for feedback, post it in the photo critiques. And then if you have specific questions, need help related to starting your business, gear questions, editing questions, we have spaces for those. So without further ado though, welcome everyone. Luna's video from Germany. I see a lot of great friends here, Bill and Carolyn, Maria, Emma, Colette. Thank you for coming back to Frame by Frame. I have a lot of photos submitted to this one, and I knew it because shallow depth of field, it's a very fun challenge. It's a relatively easy challenge to do wherever you are. So I am going to be getting into it. And for those of you new, you might have seen the replays of this, but just so we're on the same page, what I'm trying to do is give feedback. I give each photo a lightning bolt rating, 1 through 5. I start at 3 stars. Most photos, I think, get 3 stars. If it's a good photo, a nice looking photo, it'll be a great 3-star photo. If it's something that wows me personally or stands out to me personally, I increase that and I'll share reasons for that. If it's a photo that I think could use a little bit of help, doesn't speak to me personally, then it might get a lower rating. But this is all just my personal opinion. So I hope it's beneficial to you and not, I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. So we're going to get into it. I like Anmar's suggestion, though, that we could shout out people who got the highest rating on Instagram, in the forum, or something like that. I love that idea. I have been thinking about what I can do. The good thing is that I have these recordings. I have it all documented. So it'd be nice to do it on a weekly basis, but maybe it's something at the end of the year we can put together a nice post to or something. I don't know. Let's get into it. Lots of photos, so I'm going to go pretty quick on these photos, and starting with Sandra McGarry. Shallow depth photo, spider. I love the lighting. I love the textures. I like the centering of this photo with the spider somewhat in the center. It looks like it caught, I don't know if that's some leaves or some bugs. It looks like a bunch of stuff. I really like this photo. I like the lighting and how it's backlit so that the spider and the web really stands out from the background. So I'm going to give this one, I'm going to start out with a good old 4-star rating. And I think what's super beneficial is if people can see what you think, you would give the photos as well. So something that's helpful is when people are replaying this on YouTube, they might or might not see the comments. But if you're making a comment about a photo, maybe mention the person's name or something specific about the photo. Hey, I really like that spider photo or something. Or if you have critiques or suggestions, just so people know which photo you're talking about. David Austin, this is an interesting photo. David made the choice to focus on one of the back parts of this plant. Man, it almost looks like a caterpillar swirled like that, but it looks like a really cool plant. Very cool. Subject wise, it kind of reminds me of the style of photo that I like. Like if you see behind me, I have like lots of like nature-y photos, shallow depth of field, soft. Part of me feels like I almost would have preferred the front one in focus with the background all out of focus, because the front one I think is so much in the foreground that like it almost feels like, oh, why is that not in focus? Like maybe if that part of the plant that is in focus, maybe if that was more centered in the photo, I would have liked it better with still some of that foreground elements. I'm going to give this one a 3. It's still a great photo, but personally, I would make a couple changes. I love the willingness to volunteer. Maria, Emma, Anmar, thank you so much for being willing to do that. I will noodle on the idea and think if there's a way for me to do that. I would love for some help in the community. One, being moderators. I have a couple people who are really good at flagging posts if they should be flagged, but also if they're in the wrong place. But I would love, Colette, shout out, thank you, if I had some help in the community being moderators and things like that. So really, really appreciate it. All right, next photo. Let's get to Pascal. Cool. Lots of plants in these photos. I love it. I love it. Carolyn says this was displaying at 720p. Let me know if anyone else is having a really bad quality issue. I don't know if I could even change that at this point, but it looks like on my side it should be 1080p. But let me know. This is an interesting photo. It's kind of dark overall. Like I feel like maybe the plant needs to be a little bit brighter for it to stand out, even though like it does stand out from the background. Maybe boost the saturation, or not necessarily the saturation, but just the brightness in the middle just a little bit on that plant so it's a little bit more visible. Maybe would have liked it a little bit closer. Yeah, I don't know. It's not a bad photo at all. I think with this type of photo, you were trying to capture the whole plant, which is cool. Maybe it's just me personally would have liked to see like a close up on one of these flowers to get like super detailed on that and see the detail of it. But it's you did get the focus right on those front flowers. And maybe it's just if on a small screen, when I'm looking at a big screen, which is nice, but if you're posting this and someone was looking at this and scrolling through on Instagram or on whatever app on their phone, it'd be kind of hard to see the details of this. Technically, nice photo. I like the vignetting. I like that the background's dark and the focus is on the plant, but I would probably just somehow boost the exposure just a little bit, maybe. So I'm going to give this one a 3. 3 out of 5 lightning bolts. Derek Siegel. Nice shallow depth of field. Really good photo. The only thing I would have done is, because the seagull is facing to the right of the photo, maybe put a little bit more space on the right side of the frame. That to me looks a little bit more natural when like your subject is facing the side of a photo, putting more negative space, more space on that, because it looks like, I mean, you can kind of tell that the seagull itself is almost centered, but it's a little bit to the right of the frame. So I think that is the only thing I would suggest. It's a 3-star photo for me. Really nicely captured, and yeah, nice edit too. Not too contrasty. You didn't overdo it with the edit at all. Very, very nice. Abhishek, another flower photo. This is really cool. I'm like, my first thought is like, what would I do if I was in this situation? I like it. The flower, even though it's in focus, sharp focus, super shallow depth of field is great. The flowers being yellow behind it, you kind of lose a little bit of this one singular flower standing out. What you could have done is maybe gotten up a little bit higher, where like if you're still focused on this flower, the green of the stems below, it looks very uniform. And if this one flower was standing out on the green background, maybe it would have popped a little bit better. I don't know. That's kind of what I typically try to do when I'm taking photos of flowers. I mean, also, I like the idea of getting the profile of the flower and not only going at like the face of it, especially for shallow depth of field. With depending on your lens, it's really hard if you're looking straight down at like a flower from the top view. It's often hard to get all of that in focus unless you use a very high f-stop. But I'm just trying to think of ways to make this one flower pop and stick out more. It's a great photo, great lighting's pretty good. It's a little hard. It's a hard situation with that harsh light coming in. It's pretty bright, but something to try to make it stand out from the background. Maria says I would have reduced the blue in the back and up the blur in post, and agree with the angle. Yeah, maybe a little radiant mask to boost it. Still, I'm going to give it a 3. Great photo. Fun photo. And maybe you can go try that again. What I loved is from a previous challenge, someone listened to the feedback that I gave and re-edited their photo and then reposted it. And it's really cool to see taking into action, what I said or some of the other members in the community have said. So when you take a photo like this, and if you hear any feedback, if you have the chance to go back and try something different out, post a new photo underneath your post in the weekly challenge. I would love to see that. All right, Cesar, will you marry me? I'm curious what the story behind this is. Was this someone's like setup that you just walked by? Or were you photographing a proposal? I love the shallow depth of field here. It's different than some of the other photos because you're focusing to something a little bit further from the camera, that sign being the main thing. So you see like even the flowers and the candles in the foreground are out of focus, which I think is okay for this photo. And then the background, you got this nice bokeh and the lights from the city behind. I believe you might have been the one, Caesar, that took in that advice I was talking about. And this looks like Sydney, I think. Maria says, I hope they said yes. Absolutely, me too. Yeah, we need the story, Caesar. But I love this photo and nicely composed. Maybe if you were up a little bit more and the "Will you marry me" sign was more in the darkness of the buildings or below the buildings, like the skyline, it might have stood out. Bill says SF. Caesar, you tell us. Maybe the sign is a little bit bright too. You could probably bring down the dark shadows around the sign so that the highlights stand out a little bit, because it is a little, like, not that overexposing the neon sign itself is bad, but just like the overall, I think the text would have stood out a little bit more if the darkness in between the neon sign or the mids were a little bit darker. But I actually really like this photo. I'm gonna give it a 4. I think it's a great storytelling photo. The choice of shallow depth of field for this kind of photo works really good with the buildings and the lights in the background. I need like a I'm gonna take a sip of water, but this show needs like a some sort of like break in the middle where, I don't know, we play a game or do something different. So if you have any ideas, let me know. May I need to come up with some more poll questions so I can ask you all some questions in the middle of the stream. All right, Paulina, this is a cool photo. Looks similar to the flowers behind me. Not sure if it's the exact same. It's a kind of cool view of like this building. So you capture the essence of the building behind, and at the same time, like some of these flowers and stalks can be are visible and sharp. It's kind of ethereal where like nothing is like capturing my attention. Like there's not a singular subject that my eye is drawn to. My eye is like bouncing back and forth trying to figure out, okay, what should I look at? But that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like this is a great photo where if I was putting together a slideshow for a new course, I could put some text over it or something, and it would just be a really nice background photo. So that's not necessarily a critique, because I think the colors and some stuff was out of focus is kind of nice. But I think it's just, it's a nice photo. 3 stars for me. Luna says, I wish you were there 1 week earlier. Explain to me what you mean. And Maria, yes, if you have any jokes, I'm terrible at jokes, so I need that. All right, Bob. Ooh, this is a lovely photo. Lovely shallow depth photo of this bee on this flower. Great choice of subject to attempt to photograph. Only thing I would do here is again, with bee photography or insect photography, I'm always like wondering, okay, well, would it have been better if it was rotated? But I think it's actually pretty good. It's a natural kind of view. I don't feel like I'm tilting upside down or anything, but maybe just boost the exposure of that bee a little bit just to make it pop. Maybe boost the yellow just a tiny bit. I don't want to go over, but like just a little bit. Oh, Luna says the flower. Yeah, wishing the flower would bloom more. Okay, if that was the comment for the last photo. Yes, timing when you're taking the photo. I like this photo. I'm going to give it a 4. Really nice photo. Nice colors. You can clear subject. Great story in this photo. Really good. All right. Amar Sajan's posted this cool plant. Hard for me to tell. It feels a little soft unless it's just the quality of the upload. Nice, stands out. This is that like duo color kind of idea where you have like two colors in a photo and they contrast each other, and it makes a very vibrant, dynamic photo. And that's pretty cool. I'm gonna give it a 3. It's a nice photo, and the flowers stand out, and yeah. 90s TV's nostalgia says, how about you include a photo of yours for each challenge, and instead of you, the viewers? Oh, I don't know if I could do that. That would be harsh. I like to give critique, not get critique. No, I'm just kidding. I think that actually is a really good idea. I should probably participate in these, and you guys can all be there to trash or praise my photos. I think that would be a fair exchange in this this lopsided, one-sided dynamic that we have now. So I really like that idea. So yeah, maybe I'll try to do that for upcoming weeks. I love that idea, actually. Ian Brown, squirrel photo, really nice photo. This is one where the focus is on the squirrel's eyes nicely, which is, I think, the most important part of a person, an animal, and that's where you want to get focus. It's also tough with animals because I feel with animals, it's nice to get focus on, have their nose or whiskers or that part, their mouth, in focus as well. So this is like such shallow depth of field. But overall, I like the lighting. It's very nice, and it's a nice, great photo of a squirrel. I'm gonna give it a 4. Amar is here and asking, what would I do to make this photo better? What do you think in the comments? I would love to know what you guys think. It's not a bad photo in many ways where I could say, oh, well, I think you could like go from a different angle or edit it differently. Maybe it's just the choice of subject is not as interesting to me. Maybe it's the background being maybe if the background was a little bit darker, I don't know, maybe you could like do a radial mask and darken up the background just a little bit and have the flowers pop even more. Or maybe there was like a different bunch of flowers that were more perfectly uniform. You see how on the bottom right, there's that other flower that's starting to bloom too. Kind of like for these types of flower and plant photos, like really what I think for me stands out is when there's like one singular subject that's easily defined amongst the background. And so when anything else is competing for attention or competing with the shape of things, I think that's where maybe a choice of a different bunch of flowers, I don't know, maybe reducing the green in the background, as Maria says. I think Imran's right. Maybe the saturation is just a little bit over, too boosted for the flowers. Maybe bring that down just a little bit. I think you lose a little bit of like the texture or differentiation in all these petals in the middle. And this also could have been one where you get even close up. I think the thing with this photo is like the background doesn't add a lot to this photo. And so like getting even tighter in on this bunch of flowers, so it's like just like almost fills the frame with all of these flowers and textures. I know that's a little bit different than like the shallow depth of field challenge that we had, because you want to have like something in the frame that's focused and then some blurry stuff in the background. But just hopefully that helps. Janine LeBlanc, yay, we got a picture of a person, which is always harder, a bigger challenge. Nice photo. What I would have done here, one, I think the colors are a little bit green. The skin is a little bit like desaturated and bluish or greenish. So check the white balance settings and fix that. Maybe even like bring down the exposure on his face and on his shirt just a little bit. But then I think I would have rotated just a little bit so that you see, I don't know, it's kind of nice seeing like the perfect profile of his face. Like you see, that's kind of cool. You see the outline of his nose, smelling this flower. So I don't know if I necessarily want you to rotate so that you can see more of his face, because I do like that, but there's something about it where it's like, I don't know if you guys agree, but like I feel like I want to rotate to the left a little bit as a photographer, and maybe it's just the fence post or something that's doing that to me. Maybe crop in just a little bit too, just get a little bit tighter. It's such an interesting photo of like, I can see the idea, the story of smelling this rose or this flower, and I could probably lose a bit of the bottom and get a little bit tighter on him. But I love the shallow depth of field, and I like the framing. Like, you have this framing of these plants, but then the background, it's kind of like all white and overexposed in the background. So I think there's a lot of edits that I would make this to change it just a little bit. But because the creativity is a little higher, I'm actually personally going to give this a 4 star. 4 stars, because I think yeah, it's just creative. David has a great question. Isn't that a style choice on the coloring? Yeah, I agree. I think, yes, that could be a style choice, and maybe it's just not my preferred style. I do think his skin just looks a little bit too like cool to feel like a little unnatural, but I don't know. But yeah, I think like I'm coming from my perspective, so I do think like I tend to like err on giving critique or feedback on like how I would edit the photo. So yes, I think it's true that people have a style and can edit their photos cooler or greener or more magenta or teal or whatever, and it still makes it a nice photo. All right, let's move on. And another great flower photo. Again, similar to Amar's photo before. I think you lose the singular flower. Now, this is a hard situation because there's so many flowers in the background. So it's hard for me to say what I would do. Maybe this is one where I would have centered the photo. I think like having it centered and symmetrical could look really nice. Maybe play around with like a vignette or a radial filter to like try to darken the background. The flower's in focus though, and that's nice, and it's nice shallow depth of field. This is one where I don't know if they dropped the saturation on the greens in the background, but I think the greens aren't competing with the foreground color. It kind of matches. So my eye is still drawn to the flower, so that's nice. Maybe boost the saturation of the reds. Could. I don't know. I mean, that's just totally a choice too. Like, I like the idea of keeping things natural as well. Maybe going in just a little bit tighter, even cropping. This white flower bud down below at the bottom. I always forget, you can't see my mouse. I'm like hovering over stuff, but the white bud in the bottom kind of distracts me. And that's one of those times where like you can go, if it's possible, like move it with your hand while you're taking this photo, so it's not in the way of this flower. Maria says, lovely pictures, but this is all about angle or maybe featuring several. Yeah, I agree. I feel like playing around with featuring several of them, which again might be hard with the shallow depth of field challenge or finding a singular one. Technically though, it's a pretty good photo. 3-star default. It's like I don't want all the photos to be 3 stars, so maybe I have to start being a little bit more like varied in my critiques. Mubin Khan posted this one. This is a super interesting photo. Totally not the style of anything I would do in terms of the edit or the portrait style, but very cool. I'm curious if you use Lightroom or whatever tool to make the background even more out of focus than just the lens. To me, it looks like almost like that fall off of focus is like a little edited, but I don't know, maybe not. The idea is really cool though, and maybe I would have had her looking down at the flowers, maybe. And then the only other thing that's like more distracting to me is the background, the paper texture in the background. You see that crinkle in like the top left corner behind her right shoulder. If there's any way to sort of blur that out, mask that out, so that you're not seeing that sort of crinkle, I would try to do that. You could do that in Lightroom pretty good. So this is really creative. I like the colors, super creative use of this. And the sharpness on those flowers and the textures on the flowers is really, really good. So, all right, what the heck? I'm going to give this one a 5. Even though I have a couple of those little tweaks that I would make in the editing, I think it's a very creative photo. And I like seeing something that I wouldn't do myself, or I would have a hard time doing a photo session like this. And I think that's a really cool photo. Michelle, this photo of a little bug. I don't know what that is. Dragonfly. This is a little bit a hard one. The focus is just slightly off from the bug. I think it's so hard to capture photos like this of like a bug without like the other parts of a plant being like distracting or being like having it positioned perfectly. I think because the focus is slightly off, it's hard to like, I don't know, or maybe it's because it's like tilted. I mean, this is really tight on the inside of a flower. This is like the little, I don't know what those are called, but the little things with the pollen in the middle of a flower. So it's really tight. You probably could have just asked the bug to like hop on the other one and just like level out or something. No, I don't know. I think it's just, this is a hard one and the focus is just slightly off. So it's not like a bad practice. I'm going to give it 2 stars because I think this photo, something like this could be a lot better. Just having that bug in a different spot, hanging out there, maybe it flies to a different bug or something. And yes, stamen, David says, but like Maria says, it's called allergies. Yeah, exactly. But I like the colors. Almost like if this was just a photo of the flower, the stamen themselves, that could have been interesting too. That's a hard photo. Ooh, this is a cool photo. And I'm trying to have like my cat handicap level be fair so that like cats like bump up my rating. So I need some sort of handicap to push it back. But this is a really good photo, right? Magenta bear. Lovely colors, lovely natural vignetting. I like the texture and the contrast you have on the cat. Perfect focus on the eyes. You still have a lot of focus on the nose. I like the centering, the backlighting. And then the surrounding area is, I'm not sure if you did this, but it's a little bit softer, not as contrasty, and I think it works really well. Maria says, adorable cat. This is a 5-star photo for me. 5-star photo. Only thing I don't like the watermark. I'm sorry. It's just so distracting. Maybe if it was all white and a little bit more opaque, but I love it. And Colette says, which is cool too, the eyes match the colors of the greens in the background, which is kind of cool. So really good job, Magenta Bear. You posted. I don't know your name, and I think your name in the community is Magenta Bear as well. So really cool photo. Great job. Oh my gosh, another cat. This is a great case study, and I've said this before that I don't try to compare photos, but it's just inherently what we do in our minds, and we can see what is the difference between these two photos. It's all about lighting, right? Well, partially it's about expression and the composition, but it's a very similar composition, but there's the lighting aspect of it, and then the background. It's, if I hadn't seen the other photo, I probably would feel like, oh, this is a great photo. I probably would bring up the exposure on the eyes just a little bit to make them pop. Maybe cropped in just a tiny bit tighter to get a little bit closer. But the only difference in this photo not being as dynamic and interesting to look at for me in the other one is the lighting. And so I'm going to give this one a 3-star. It's a little green. Maybe like pay attention to the white balance. I mean, that just happens though in nature. If you're amongst trees, the green color from these plants just bounces off onto subject. So in reality, this might be what it looked like. Like everything has sort of like a greenish tint. I don't know if you all have that sort of issue if you're doing wildlife photography. I've noticed that with doing a lot more bird photography, that sometimes if I'm taking photos in a tree, just everything has like a green light to it, and that's just what it looks like naturally. But yeah, I would probably try to just focus in on the cat a little bit more with like some sort of vignetting, subtle vignetting, because there's already kind of like a vignette around it, but then make that face pop a little bit more. Maybe the whole face needs to increase in exposure just a little bit more. Did I already give it a rating? 3 stars. That's what I'm going to give it. I swear I didn't do this on purpose. And I actually have a helper who puts together these slides, but we got the 3rd cat in a row. Again, a totally different photo. This one's, you can tell that the focus is on the front eye, the left eye, but that one's in the darker in the shadows. And I think because the right eye is the one that's highlighted, you see that nice eye light, the reflection of like maybe a window or something like that. That's the one that I feel like should be in focus if they're not both in focus. I mean, these are, again, decisions that I can make now looking at this photo, but like in the moment when you're looking at the back of your camera, or if you're trying to focus, this isn't something you're necessarily able to do in the moment. I know that's hard. I do kind of like the shadows and the lighting. It's very moody, which I think is kind of cool. David says this one looks like it's using a laptop. Yeah, helping out with photo dash or photo friend submissions. I just wish the other eye was in focus for this photo, because I think what's in focus is a little bit too dark, right? Is that just me? But the whole left side of the face is in the shadows, and you could probably, if this is a raw photo, you could probably bring up that, but then you kind of lose out on the moodiness of it. But I might try that just to see what it looks like. But a nice portrait of this cat. I'm trying to be more critical, trying to make this beneficial. I'm gonna give it a 2. Sorry, it's like really good, but like I think it's just the focus is like, since that's what this challenge is all about, that being a little off for me is like the biggest issue. I don't know. Am I being too mean on that one? Hong Wang. Oh, hummingbirds. So hard to take photos of. But this is a case where everything's overexposed. It's overexposed. And the wings, it doesn't have, I've seen beautiful photos of hummingbirds where the wings are blurry. But this might have been a case where if you bumped up that shutter speed, you could have gotten a little bit of a sharper image of the motion of the wings. I'm not sure, because those hummingbirds' wings go so fast. So who knows? But everything's a little bit overexposed, even the flower on the left. So I think compositionally, this is a pretty good photo. It's so hard to take photos of hummingbirds, birds, let alone just birds in general. But these hummingbirds aren't just like sitting there. They're flying in and flying out. So I got to give you credit for capturing it in this frame. But just overall, I think technically, like, the fact that it's overexposed and it's a little soft, I think hurts what this photo could be. So I'm gonna give it a 2-star. I think just because it's a missed opportunity for this shot. I don't think I necessarily would have been able to take it better in this moment, but push yourself, go out, try to get a similar photo of some hummingbirds and come back and see if you could get one that's a little bit more exposed, right? Because it looks like it was too exposed to bring back those details in post. All right, we're going to take a little stretch break. And while we do this, since I see some people talking about their basic cameras, kit lenses, prime lenses, post in the chat 2 things. 1, post how about your last camera model that you had and your current model that you're using. So I'm curious to see, like, what did you upgrade from, if you have upgraded, and if you're just using your first camera you've ever purchased, that's totally fine too. And then also what lens you're using, and be specific, name the brand, name the model, so that we can all share and see what everyone else is using. Owl Anderson, another squirrel. This one looks like a squirrel that's like got a little bit of a story to it, creeping across this like sidewalk gravel patch. Yeah, no, it's nice. It is really good focus because everything kind of blends together. The textures of the background, the colors, the exposures with the squirrel, but you nailed the focus. So that's really good. It's pretty much in the sense of the squirrel itself is centered in the middle of the frame. But I think because like the body is on the left side of the frame, maybe like frame composing a little bit to the left, maybe it would have been helpful. Again, it's that idea of like the squirrel is moving to the left of the frame, so leaving a little bit of extra space on the left side might feel a little bit more balanced, but I think still a pretty good photo. I'm gonna give this a 4-star. I feel like my ratings have kind of shifted since I started today, but I'm being a little bit more generous with some. But yeah, I think it's a pretty good photo. All right, we're getting lots of comments in. We see Emma with the Pentax KP to the Canon R7. Nice. Maria with the trusty D3300 with the kit lens. Love that. Love seeing people just crushing it with the original camera, the kit lens. It's proof that you can take great photos with any camera. Bill with the Sony a7 III to the Fuji X-T4. Twinsies. Love that. Colette, Samsung NX300. I don't even know, is that a phone or is that like a camera that they made? To the Fujifilm X-T3. I love seeing the Fuji fam here. Canon, the 5D Mark II to the Sony a7R5. That is like a classic transition. Classic transition upgrade for a lot of people that I know. Fuji X-T30 to the X-T44. Linda started with, got the 7200, the Nikon. Amar with the Canon 450D with the kit 18 to 55 lens. Maria with the Canon Rebel T6, nice, to the Fujifilm. Wow, a lot of people went to Fuji. I don't know if we had any effect on that, but that is really cool. I went from Canon to Fuji as well. Carolyn, the Canon Rebel T3i, got the 50mm prime. That's awesome. And Luna's videos, analog, Nikon F65, and the phone, and the Sony 6400. Nice. Very cool. And Colette says, no, that Samsung was a old old camera. Fuji does rock. And one of our good students, Very, was trying to convince me yesterday in the live stream. I'm talking about wildlife photography, myself getting more into bird photography, and this kind of itch to try something new. I'm looking at the Nikon Z8. A lot of people love that, but she's imploring me to try the Fujifilm X-T5, which is an upgrade from my X-T4 before I jump ship. I love the Fuji for so much. It's just I have felt a little bit held back on some wildlife stuff. All right, speaking of Bill posted this photo of this flower. Look, I like the wet petals, but it's a little out of focus. I don't know if that was like a choice. Bill, let us know in the comments, but I want it to be in focus. I want that center to be in focus. I like the idea of the edit though a lot with the like the faded black sort of look. And the water, I think, especially if that was water that you added, I love the idea to just add water to flowers, which, you know, sometimes I err on the side of like wanting things to be completely natural, but getting those photos of those water droplets is really nice too. Oh, it's a Lensbaby lens. Oh, that's interesting. That kind of changes things. I have never used the Lensbaby lens, but that's one of those ones that has some like creative effects. Let me show you what this looks like. I was like pretty close to giving it a 2-star, but I think because you were being creative with a Lensbaby lens, I'm gonna give it a 3-star because it is kind of cool. Lensbaby. Yeah, this is cool. It's got these like tilt shift effects. Very cool. I kind of wish the center was still in focus compared to the outside of the photo. Like I wish that center of the flower was in focus and then the outside petals out of focus. It almost looks like there's like a little bit of motion, but for creativity's sake, get an extra point for that. So I'm gonna do the 3-star. All right, let's see. We got oh my gosh, we are time's moving along, but I'm enjoying this, but I'm gonna go a little bit quicker. Ian Brown, wow, this is like a totally different edit. You know, you go from something soft, faded to super contrasty. This bee on some sort of plant. Love the colors. It's super sharp. I'm curious like what the background was though. It almost looks like maybe this is completely edited with like a dark gradient filter to like make everything black behind, which is kind of a cool look, a cool edit. But I love the sharpness, love the shallow depth of field, and yeah, overall, I think this is a really cool photo. I'm gonna give this 4 stars, Ian. Great job. I'm gonna have to ask my assistant if she was putting these photos back to back. Peter with another bee photo. I love this one. Now, the story of this one is really nice. It's hard for me to see. The focus looks a little sharp off, but it almost looks like that's because you added some sort of like you used the clarity filter and you decreased it or something like that. Oh, David says check out his comment. Yeah, I'll have to check it out. But if you want to share what the comment said here while I'm live, that'd be great too. I love this photo though, just like the softness of it, the edit, and the colors and everything, and the storytelling and the cleanness of the background. Like this was a choice to photograph this profile flower. Lucky to have that bee on there. Bees are great because they do spend a little bit more time on a flower, so you have like a little bit of extra time to try to frame up, or you can kind of wait for like if there's a bunch of bees on a bush of flowers, they kind of like pop around. But I like how the background is so clean. The only thing I would probably do, and maybe this is like almost like an AI edit, is like that on the far left, there's this little highlight thing. I would have just cropped that out or just used like a filter or brush, gradient filter, or like the healing brush or something to just get rid of that. Probably just cropped in just a little bit, but I love this photo. That yes, Magenta Bear. If I'm gonna call you out, then I'm gonna call. That's funny. I'm gonna call out the call out the watermark here too. I think the watermark does distract. I would probably make it a white watermark. Drop the opacity too. That's good. That is funny. I'm gonna give this one a 5-star though. I really like just the whole the colors and everything. It's very nice. David said, this last one, I was curious about what this one was doing. Ian rescued a bee after a rain shower. It's on a piece of wood drinking from some sugar water. Now that's awesome. All right, cool. Ooh, this is nice. So there was that photo of the other stamen, right? Stamen with the little fly or dragonfly or something on it. And I was thinking like sometimes just a photo of like the stamen themselves is a very cool photo. And I like this one a lot, just like the textures of it. I like the composition, the angle, because you can see the rest of the flower in the background, but like all of the ends of the stamen are in focus, which is nice. It's a little, is it bright overall? I don't know. Maybe you could have brought down the exposure or just boosted the contrast a little bit or something, brought down the shadows just a little bit, but still like this is my kind of photography. Again, like if you could zoom in on this like poppy flower or this grassy flower behind me, you would see a very similar look to this Annette. So lovely, lovely photo. I'm going to give this a 4-star. Really good photo. Ooh, now we're talking. Tally with the bagel shot. I like the storytelling in this photo. I like, you got this American flag, tablecloth. You got the buildings in the background. I don't know. It doesn't look like New York to me, unless it's like a part of New York where the buildings aren't as big. But I love the story of like the bagels in America. Really cool. I maybe would have like wanted the full buildings at the top to have a little bit of headroom, a little bit of space up above, so it doesn't feel like they're cropped out, and maybe backing away or tilting up a little bit and like coming down with the camera could have helped with that. And also I think there's something to be said that the background is very bright and the bagels some of the bagels are a little bit darker, especially that center one. And my eye keeps going up to the highlights in the background, not on the main subject of this photo in the foreground. Gosh, now I'm hungry. But maybe something to get our focus back on the bagels would just like take this photo to the next level. It's still a great photo, nice colors, nice lighting. I like the lighting. It works good for like a food photo. But maybe just boost the exposure a little bit on the bagels. Okay, 3-star, 4-star. What would you guys get? Bagels originate from Poland, though. Yeah, that's a good point. There is a bagel shop around me. I'm in California. That's pretty good, but man, I want to go to New York and get some bagels, or Poland. Yeah. Storytelling wise, just because it's a little different, I'm gonna give it 4. Am I being too generous? I don't know. I think it's a pretty good photo though. Pretty good storytelling too. as well with like where it's set up. Ooh, another cat photo. Very cool. Similar to that other one where it's very green, but that's just because of the green colors. I think the focus could be slightly off unless it's just the upload or the resolution of the photo. But I love this idea of like the eyes just peeking through. Yeah, I see a lot of people saying the other one could have been a 3, but that's okay. That's okay. There's something about wanting the cat's eyes, the face to pop a little bit more in this. So maybe boosting the exposure just a tiny bit on it. And then also like making it a little more contrasty or something, or fixing the white, changing the white balance just a touch. Man, but this is really good. Like if I'm comparing back to that other one where the cat was on the wall, I think I gave that one a 3-star. So like for this one to me is like a much cooler photo. I think there's just a tiny bit of editing that I would change, but still a really good photo. So I'm going to give it 4. There we go. That's right. Ooh, Peter, this is an interesting photo of the back of a sunflower, which is cool. Nice photo. I would probably have framed it just a little bit different. I like the idea, but I think the left side of the frame with like, I don't know if it's partially like the planter, the pot, and then the leaves. I could lose all that. You could almost crop this to be like a portrait photo of just like the flower, mostly just the flower, or even gone tighter in and just gone on like a portion of the flower and the petals, which I think would be kind of cool. Really nice idea. But I think that crop would, or like adjusting the framing just a little bit would really help this photo. So don't want to be too critical, but I'm going to give it a 2 lightning bolts. Allison, interesting water shot. Looks like it's coming down from like some sort of water fountain or something. Kind of cool, like really sharp focus on that, really fast shutter speed to get it locked in there. It's kind of just like not architecturally, but like the shape of it is interesting. The background to me is like a little bit, I don't know, distracting or something, but I'm also wondering if you're here taking a photo of just this water coming down, if you could have done it where like you caught it in the moment where it's almost reaching the bottom of the frame rather than like a full stream going down. Like that could have been interesting. But I like the edit. I like the black and white edit, and the sharpness on that water is really cool. Like Emma says, it looks frozen. I think for me, I'm going to give it a 3. I think the background to me like coming down. I don't know if you could have come down or something, or being tighter. I don't know. There's something about the railing being slanted that I don't like. But I'm always saying that about like lines and stuff. That's like a personal preference. Ooh, Mirella, this is a cool photo. Wow. Talk about shallow depth of field. If there was a prize for the shallowest depth of field, this would win, right? I like the framing. Is it on water? Like, look you see like the reflection of it down below? Is this like some like water bug or something? And just the framing of like the antenna that go up, like being partly in the frame, is really, really cool. I love this photo. I like there's nothing I would change about this photo, personally. I love it. 5 stars, Mirella. This is my favorite photo that I've seen today. So, yeah, really, really good job. So cool. I wonder what lens that was on. Maybe it's in the community. All right, Laura, cool. I love these little like sort of wishing flowers. Background's nice. You went super extreme with like, I don't know, the rule of thirds or the negative space, but it's slightly off, not sharp, the flower. Like, I think I want the flower plus the little things, I don't know what those are called, the little seed things that fly away, petals, I don't know if that's what you call petal, but those look pretty sharp, but I kind of want the whole flower in focus. And I think because there's like one other little bud that's coming up to the left in the frame, it feels like I want that in the frame or just out. So again, one of those photos where like maybe this photo, but you just take your hand and you move those two buds down, so it's just this singular flower. Maybe could have been a little bit cleaner or not, but yeah, I think the main issue for me though is that the main flower itself is still a little out of focus. So even though this is a shallow depth of field challenge, I think you probably could have increased your f-stop, close down that aperture just a little bit to get a little bit of a deeper depth of field to get that whole flower in focus. So I'm going to give Laura, this is 2. Also, maybe the white balance might be a little greeny on this one for me. Maria, who I believe is here. Photo, another plant, bug. See, like, I love this challenge because it's just easy for people to go out in their garden, outside where they live, and take photos. I love the idea of it. I like that there's this bug that potentially can contrast with color on this green stem of like this succulent type plant. It's just a little dark and it's a little far away. I don't know if you could have cropped in a little bit more or gotten closer and still, like, because with shallow depth of field, you're limited by that close focus, right? So again, I could sit here and say, oh, you should go move in forward and get a little closer. But I know that, like, depending on your lens, you might have been like the closest focus that you can be. Or obviously with bugs and animals, like if you get closer, they're going to fly off. So it's a tricky balance. But I think just overall, the exposure, I think this photo like could be like 5 times better if the exposure is a little bit higher, and then maybe even raise that saturation on the bug just a little bit, or the exposure specifically on the bug to make it pop just a little bit, because I think it kind of just falls flat. But still, I think technically really nice shallow depth of field. I like the color palette in terms of like the shades of green, the tones of the green. But I think a couple editing tweaks can make it better. Linda Sayeda, this is a cool just kind of texture photo. Wondering if this is like a wall or if it's the ground. And if it's the ground, if it is supposed to be rotated, I'm not sure. But still a nice photo. Not much to be said about it. It's a nice texture, shallow depth of field photo. It's not a subject that's like super compelling where like you see like just a sliver of it and it's like captures your attention, but it's a nice texture. So 3 for me, for Linda. Maybe bring up the exposure just a little bit. Yeah. Catherine, another cool, another portrait. We don't have a lot of shallow. Oh, it's a wall on a fort. Cool. Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like the texture up and down. Maybe cropping in just a tiny bit so that that sliver is in the center more. I don't know, not necessarily, but yeah, maybe just bring up the exposure just a little bit, or what you could do is you could push the contrast or the texture a bit just to make it that texture pop just a tiny bit more. Catherine with this photo, lovely edit, nice shallow depth of field. I don't mind the crop of like the head being a little off. I mean, maybe, I don't know if you took the photo like this and cropped in, and if you have a little bit of headroom, sometimes when it's like so close to the edge, it's like you want to crop even a little bit more just so it feels purposeful, that your framing is like cutting off the top of someone's head. But lovely sharp focus on your subject's face. So Amar, not sure if this is for this, maybe shot from further back. Yeah, maybe just a touch. But I actually don't mind if it's like cropped in, but maybe it's just like, maybe it feels a little tight though. I don't know overall, but still really nice photo. I'm going to give this 4. I really like what you did with and just the choice of the shallow depth of field. Even you fall out of focus in their hair and ears and stuff in the background, but it's still really nice. Ooh, Deanna, another bee photo. This is cool. This is a hard photo and one that, like, in a lot of scenarios doesn't work. I think I've critiqued a lot of photos where there's a lot of flowers and I'm like, well, you want like one flower, right? Or like the flowers don't stand out from the background, or the subject. But I'm going to put the question to you all. Wow, it's 11:06. Time is going, but I'm enjoying this. What is it about this photo that is different than some of the other photos where the flower, like capturing a lot of flowers at once, it works? And also you have this bee there that's part of the story, but we're not tight on the bee. But for this photo, I don't mind at all, actually. I really like it. So while you post your comments, I'm going to say that it feels very intentional that you framed it like this. I think there's such shallow depth of field that the background is not distracting, even though it's the same flowers and colors. And I think there's enough flowers in this like front panel to make it like all the flowers are the subject. And then the bee just happened to snap this photo when the bee was right in that little spot where the background is like clean. There's like just greenish behind it, so it stands out. The bee is not in perfect focus. That is true. And it's hard to see because I'm looking at it on the screen and it's far away. The bee is not in perfect focus. It's a little bit behind. You can see it's on the same plane as some of those back petals. But I mean, I guess that would have put it like as perfect of a photo as I would have wanted for this. This is where the rule of thirds, like, it's just a naturally nice place for that bee to be the main. I would call that the main subject of this photo. Yeah, I don't know. I really like it. Maria says, I don't think it needs the bee. It's true. Like, I think this photo could have worked without the bee. The fact that the bee's there, to me, makes it a little bit more of like a better story, I guess, of a photo, and maybe a photo that I pause on just a little bit. But yeah, I think, yeah, I guess, yeah, it's like if that bee was more in focus, it would have been a little bit better. But I just really like the framing. I'm gonna give it a 5. It's right up there with that other photo of that weird alien bug for me. I think I like that other one a little bit better, but I still think this photo is like really good. Wow. Okay. Eric, this is incredible. Another bee photo with flowers. Very similar critiques, I guess, or not critiques, but reasons why I like this photo. Very similar to the other one. The bee, the flowers in the foreground we're not distracted by the background as much, because whether that's the lighting, the shallow depth of field. The only thing about this one is it feels a little bit like the subjects, which is that main flower and the bee, are on the right side of the frame. And I would honestly crop this like as a square or something, or portrait where it was just that flower and the bee, and lose the left side a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. I think there's Luna's video says it's too blue. There is something about the edit that feels a little bit more unnatural than the previous one. Like the saturation of everything is a little bit much. It almost, I mean, Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's hard to not be skeptical of these photos. It almost looks like that bee is fake, like it was put in there by AI afterwards. But I don't want to assume that, so I'm gonna assume it's a real bee. But the fact that you got this bee in this perfect moment is really amazing. Lighting's really good, and yeah, I think. Oh man. 5, I don't know, 4, 5. It's up there. It's up there. I think I'm gonna give it a 4. It's really. I think a lot of people might like this one more than the previous one that we just saw, but me personally, it's the cropping, and then the colors are a little bit much for me. But man, Eric, such a good photo. Such a good photo. Jeanette, some sort of stuffies. This is a cool photo. All I would do is maybe boost the exposure or contrast just a little bit, but I really like these little stuffies with a little smirk on their face. And yeah, it's a nice use of like layering, pattern, colors. And yeah, I think it's a 3. A really cool photo. Not as dynamic of a story as some of these other ones, but still pretty great practice for shallow depth of field. Ira. Ooh, so this is interesting. So this is like a similar style or similar shallow depth of field as that weird alien bug one. But it's tough because this one, the black and white, it's hard for me to know if you lost anything in choosing to do black and white. Like with bugs and flowers, I kind of want to see the colors. That being said, the focus is really nice. I really like that bokeh you get in the background. A little bit overexposed on the leaf in the foreground. It's a good photo. I'm gonna give it a 3. Maybe it could be 3 leaning 4. Really interesting subject, and the black and white is a interesting editing choice. I kind of just wish I could see the color just to see like I don't know. Just personally, I think with bugs and flowers, I typically want to see the color. Suzanne. Suzanne has been one of our weekly publishers, posting every week, so thank you. Looks like a frog that might be in like a little terrarium. The frog's face is a little bit dark, so if there was a way to boost the overall exposure, this is one where I might rotate it just a little bit so that the eyes of the frog are like level. I don't know. Maybe a personal preference. I probably would have just tried that to see what it looks like. Maybe you got it right. It's just a little bit dark. I think like, is this a frog? Maybe it's not a frog. Maybe it's a lizard or a gecko or something like that. A Foyer salamander. Salamander. Yeah, it looks like a salamander. I think because we can't see the eyes, the windows to the soul, even for these animals, you want to see their eyes. I would boost that. But still, like a pretty good photo. Great shallow depth of field. I would just probably play around with the edit. All right, how is everyone doing? We still got people here tuning in. Thank you for being here. Leo, this is an interesting photo. It's kind of a fun composition of like focusing on over the shoulder. It's like a very nice composition. The only thing I would say is like, you can see if you were directing this photo, maybe you weren't directing this, but the photo on the phone, like it maybe would be more interesting to be able to see something that's on the phone better, like a closer up, or maybe they would zoom in. So I'm going to give it a 3. It's a very interesting composition, like nice composition, nice natural editing. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, 3. Emma's here with her version of a bug photo. This is one where you made the choice to photograph top down, maybe because you wanted to try to get the entire bug in focus. I think for me, the issue is then that the shape of the bug is like competing with the shape of the plant behind it. So I'm almost wondering like what this would have looked like if it was from the side, so that you can see the bug, but the background was a little bit cleaner. And even if you lose a little bit of focus, it's just a different photo. It's a different choice of angle, but it's still a really nice capture. And I don't mind all greenness of this photo. And I think because the exposure is nice on the bug in the foreground, it works. It pops from the background quite a bit. It's just, I think those plants in the background make it a little bit hard to see clearly the shape of the bug. So I'm kind of like wishing there was, I don't know. What do you guys think? What would you do differently in this photo, or not differently? I'm going to give it a 3. I think Emma says it was hard to spot him. I'm sure it was. It looks like it just blends into the plant. And maybe that's the point of a photo like this. It's kind of cool to have it just amongst the shapes of the plant. Nothing wrong with this photo technically. Nice, sharp focus. I'm just thinking maybe there could have been a more creative way to compose it, but I don't know. Nice. The background, aside from right around the bug, does not compete or distract, which I think is nice. Emma says she has more photos of the bug. Cool. All right. I am going to do a speed round self-portrait challenge. This is a previous challenge, and I'm trying to, if you're new here, I'm going back in time to the previous weekly challenges that I wasn't doing frame by frame for. And I am going to do a speed round for this. So quick, go through these ones. I don't think we had as many submissions for these previous challenges. So as more and more people start finding out, we're doing frame by frame live, reviewing all the photos. We're getting more submissions each week, especially for a week like this one, which was the shallow depth of field, which was fun. This week coming up, or right now, is symmetry. So that's awesome. And if you're watching this replay in the future and you still want to participate, please post your photos to the thread in the Photography and Friends community, and hopefully there's still will be people there that can give you critiques. Will, just a side note, says that he was watching a Cornell Labs and OM Systems live stream with Tim, Russell, and Lamont. That's interesting. For me, Will was here on the live Q&A yesterday with me and Will Carnahan, and we were talking about different cameras that are good for wildlife photography, bird photography, and OM Systems, which is Olympus created that brand for their wildlife photography system, is a really good one. I'm going to have to check that out. All right, so this is self-portrait. I'm looking for photos that are compositionally interesting. Lighting is good because you have the time to set it up, and also something that tells me a little bit about you, your personality. Maybe it's a mood that you're in right then, but something about yourself. So let's go through it. Speed round, Abhishek. Interesting lighting, composition. I kind of wish you were facing the window, but it's a choice to be facing away from the window and have that lighting fall off on you. I'm going to give it a 3. Nice, shallow depth of field, interesting composition, and pose with the mug of coffee or tea or whatever you're drinking. Kathy, nice photo. Kathy looks kind of like a selfie. I kind of want to push you to try something a little bit different and maybe try something with a little bit more creative lighting. It's very flat lighting, which is nice. But I think you could probably do something a little bit more creative with using light coming in from a window, or photographing yourself, doing a self-portrait at golden hour in the evening or something, to just to get a little bit more creative with it. So 2, great profile pic. In terms of a self-portrait, I think you can try something a little bit more creative. Kusha, nice. Looks like a little setup. Nice. I like the story element of like you're somewhere traveling. Maybe the only thing, the biggest thing I would do is put that jacket down that you're holding. I think it's kind of like distracting, and yeah, but kind of nice position. Maybe your feet are like it maybe have it's a wider lens, and sometimes like your feet, when they're close to the lens, it's like this weird perspective thing where your feet look huge and then your body and your face looks a little bit smaller. So maybe backing out even further, or getting tighter on just kind of like from your knees up or something might have been kind of cool. 3 stars, good quality photo. Ooh, Kate B, this is 5 stars. 5 stars right off the bat. Love this one. Love the color of your jacket, standing out from the background, and super creative with the composition just being so wide. The only thing like maybe that could have made this a little bit better is like your beanie parts of you like kind of blends in with the background of like the dark trees that are on this like mountain or whatever it is behind you, trying to get you to stand out a little bit more, maybe with like a lower camera angle, so that like you are in front of like the mountains and the clouds in the background. But man, look at like just the framing of this, the framing within a frame of the snow and the clouds. Super creative. So good job. Ooh, Paul, this is so cool. I'm going to give it a 5 stars. That is so creative, so out there, wild edit, but super creative. Great lineup of the photo you probably took on your phone and with your face. Looks natural in terms of like the size. Really cool. Super creative. Priya Darshan. Well, this tells me what you may be doing. Looks like you're in some sort of medical field. I think you could take a really cool photo like this. It looks like you're using a cell phone, and just the quality of the cell phone and the options that you have still aren't what you could do with like a lens with a shallower depth of field. Like if you were standing, again, maybe with the light coming in from the window and you're looking out the window and you could see your mask and your head, thing, that could be really cool. So I think like 3 for this photo tells me what you do. But again, I think you could get a little bit more creative with it. Stephen Shaw. So again, like this is a good example of that. Only thing that bugs me about this is that your foot is cropped out. Like keep those feet in or crop them out. Like crop it out more so it seems a little bit intentional. But I like the framing, and I don't mind like that there's like the shelf in on the right hand side. I think it's kind of like a nice framing. I could get picky about that light switch behind you. You could remove that in post, or maybe could have framed up a little bit different to like block it, but I still think it is a really cool photo and a great story of who you are. I'm going to give this a 4. Todd, one of our most active members in the Plus community. Got to give you a shout out because I really appreciate you being a member and helping to just keep this space a good space. Nice photo. Another selfie. And I think I know you can probably take a better, more creative portrait here in this beautiful location where you were at. I'm going to give it a 3 just because I think I could push you to do something a little bit more creative. Yeah. All right. Catherine. Ooh, this is nice. Nice setup. See, this is one where it's tricky because if you raise the level of the camera, then your head and your body, torso is in front of the trees in the background, which naturally I kind of would want to raise the level of the camera because it looks like you're looking a little bit down, but I kind of don't mind it because I like that your head is above the tree line and the reflection and symmetry of that is really nice. I might have just cropped into like a portrait version of this so that you get rid of like kind of like the right side or a square or something, just because I think the land at the bottom of the frame that goes to the right of the frame kind of like ruins the symmetry of this. So maybe crop it a square. I think you're just a little bit to the left of the frame as well. So like perfectly putting you center, which seems like the choice you're trying to make here. But really nice choice of location. I'm going to give it 4. Annette here is here. Nice location. I like the attempt of putting yourself in a position, and I know how unnatural that can feel. I think the focus is a little bit off on you. It's more focused to the background. And I think if you could maybe push yourself away from the background just a little bit so that you could focus on yourself and then get that background kind of out of focus, I think for a portrait would have been a little bit nicer. And I feel like you're a little bit squished to the left side. For this self-portrait, I think not making it so it's not really negative spacey, but squished to the side would be better. So I would challenge you to go out and take this photo again with a couple of differences. Push yourself away from the background, which might mean if you have room, push your camera a little bit further away as well. You could even still crop in to have a very similar framing, because I see like you have this bush and maybe like the bush ends and then it's like super overexposed on what's the left side of the photo frame. And then just make sure that focus is on your face. So 2 stars. I think you could do a little bit better, but I like the work you did. Ooh, this is cool. Alexandra with this really cool self-portrait. Looks like you have like a string lights or something. I like the edit. There's a little bit of softness in the focus on your face, it seems like, unless it's just the upload. I actually really like this. I think there's like the glasses reflection with the lights, string lights, that is causing that to look a little soft as well. But like compositionally, this is really great. You got the framing with the frame of like these lights, but also like these leading lines that kind of lead to you. Very, very cool choice. I'm gonna give it a 5. I think there's a the sharpness is like one little tiny thing, but in terms of composition edit, I really love it. Ooh, Isaac. Now this is a moody shot. Definitely a style. Super close, cropped in. Kind of cool. Like the point is not to see their eyes or their mouth, and that's kind of a cool choice. Very creative. Very, very creative. I'm going to give it a 4. I think very creative shot. Maybe, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's any reason I'm not giving it a 5. Yeah, no, it's a cool photo. Puneet with your camera, taking a break. Do I want to see you looking at the camera here? You also have like a very nice camera. And this looks like it was a shot on a phone. So that's not bad because it's like a photo of you, your story, your day, you're going out on a photo shoot or something. I don't like your head being cropped at the top in this photo. So doing the extra work in a setting like this where you can clean up the framing, clean up the background, position yourself somewhere different, but same setup, eating food, got a drink, camera is interesting, your action mode. Will says 5 out of 5 for the food. That's true. I'm gonna give it a 3. I think it could do a little bit better in terms of like intentionally setting up your position in the composition, but not bad. Ravi, cool photo. I like the profile, but I don't like that I can't see your eye on there. I think your glasses, it's just the angle of your face just slightly if you were turned or if the camera was a little bit more in front so I could see your eye. Your right eye is important for a photo like this. Unfortunately, with the glasses, it makes it hard, so you'd have to play around with that angle. But I like the idea. 4 stars. And that, my friends, is it. If you're not a part of the Photography and Friends community, head over there, photographyandfriends.com. You can join. It's completely free. Gotta shout out our supporters, though. I think I have... Do I have our supporter title card on here? Boom, look at that. Thank you so much for being supporters. For $5 a month, you can support the platform. Keep it going. It's a little tip for me for coming live every week, doing frame by frame. We've got our next live Q&A with Will, Sam, and myself. It's the second Wednesday of the month. Oh, Emma, was your portrait not included? I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry about that. If your photo was not included in one of those challenges, I apologize, and I'll try to make sure that I look on the community and give you some feedback. But yeah, thank you for being a supporter. If you want to be a supporter, all you have to do is go down to, go to the community, click that, become a supporter, and you can help us out. Keep the community alive. But as I was saying, we've got our next live Q&A on October 8th at 2 p.m. So that's in 2 Wednesdays. But next Thursday, I'll be back for Frame by Frame, looking at this week's challenges, symmetry. Make sure you get your photos in by Sunday so that it gets into the presentation. But lots of people posting photos. And I will try to post my photo as well so that you guys can roast me. I think that is the fair thing to do, right? All right. As always, have a beautiful day. Thank you for being a student of ours and for joining me on this photography journey. And I hope I'm helping you out in some little way. But much appreciation. Have a great week. And I'll see you next time on Frame by Frame. Bye.